Hello, it's another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast. My name is Phil Thompson.
And I'm Michael Gray.
Michael Gray, how are you today?
Great. Happy to be on.
Yeah, Steve Lacy normally with us. Steve is not on today, but just for his benefit, I looked up and this is episode 327. So
327
on Apple. As you know, we were doing this long before there was such a thing as podcast. So I think we were anyhow. I mean, I know we were doing it. We've been doing it for a long time, but podcasts, of course, have become very popular. And
yes.
So anyhow, but yeah, so yeah, we've always been doing this. We're a company that helps churches use technology. One of our main things is streaming video, among other things. But today, today, I thought we would talk a little bit about next steps. And before we get into next steps and why next steps, or why we should even have next steps, maybe we shouldn't, I don't know. But I thought I would also recommend, or at least mention to everybody out there, that we are doing a webinar. And the webinar is called, I actually wrote it down here, but I don't have my glasses on. You get 10 points if you can actually remember the title. 4 Easy Steps to Leveraging Your Live Stream for Ministry Growth Online. So say that again 5 times. And we worked really hard on this title too, by the way.
We tried to make it as long as possible so that we could leave nothing out.
So 4 easy steps to leveraging your live stream for ministry growth online. It's a webinar. It is free. It is March 15th, which is coming up. It's 12 p.m. Eastern time. By that time, it will be 9 a.m. on the Pacific Coast, but mark it down. You can sign up right now if you want by going to webinar.streamingchurch.tv. Sign up. It's free, as I said. It'll be about 30 minutes or so. We'll take some questions and answers, and we'll talk about how you can actually use your live streaming to really grow your church and help people connect and help people grow spiritually. It's not just somebody just watching your service. There's actually ways to get it interactive and make it very effective for people. So, and kind of what we're going to talk about today is somewhat interactivity. What we're going to talk about today, you can include in your live streaming, but I thought we would talk about, as I said earlier, next steps. And so, Michael, when I was getting involved in ministry back in the dark ages, the late 70s, we never talked about next steps, but we always felt the group I was with for a little while was like, yeah, if people come and they accept Jesus, then that's a notch in our belt, so to speak. It wasn't really like that, but it was like, hey, we want to get people saved. And if we can do that, then our mission has been, fulfilled. And we never talked about follow up or reaching out to people. And in some ways, and there are some churches that still don't do that, obviously, and they have their reasonings for it. But I think, and we were very relationship driven in the group I was with. So some of that actually happened automatically, next steps. But it's not always the case today. So I'm going to tee off this question, Michael. I'm going to throw it at you because you've been in ministry for a long time and you've worked really hard for churches when you were on staff on this topic. Why should I have next steps in my church program, or why should I even talk about next steps? I mean, first of all, what are next steps, and really, why should I have them if I'm leading a church?
Well, as I look at it, and we were even discussing this topic, I kind of had to step back and say, what is my theology? What is my understanding of how God works? How did Jesus work? What are the examples that we have? And there really wasn't, he had these guys, he said, come follow me. And then, there was some baptisms, and then it wasn't like somebody just patted him on the back and said, good luck, see you later. I hope things work out for you. That wasn't the case. And you guys, as you were describing your experience, you had some natural organic discipleship going on. So next steps were happening. It wasn't it just wasn't intentional. It can be intentionally organic, but I don't think we really have an option to say somebody raised their hand, I'm choosing to follow Jesus, I'm getting baptized, and pat them on the back and say good luck to you.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the model that we have before us in the text.
Yeah. I think you certainly see those things in the scriptures, and it's 2022. And it's no longer 1976 or whatever when I was involved in things, and things have changed a little bit. People aren't, I don't know. It seems to me that people aren't as naturally, as you use the term, organically connecting with people like they used to. I don't know. I mean, it used to be we would just, if we wanted to visit a friend, we would just show up at their house. And now if you do that, it's like, oh my God, what are you doing here?
What are you doing here at my house?
Yeah. I mean,
we can talk via text, Kent. You don't have to come to my house.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, that's just, I don't know. I mean, we used to, when I was in street ministry on 4th Avenue here in Tucson, we would walk around and knock on people's doors, and people would invite us in, and we would talk to them about God, and I remember when we were doing a Northwest campus for a live church back in the 90s, we did a Northwest campus, and we tried knocking, we rented a school, but then around that area, we were walking around, passing out flyers, hanging door hangers, and we knocked on some doors, and nobody let us in. Nobody wanted to come to the door. That was the 90s, right? That was the,
we've had several cultural dynamic shifts. People knocked on doors. People didn't want to talk to those people anymore. Yeah. And so there's a new dynamic we live in. So somehow we have to find the intent of what we were doing then that was successful, right, and find a way to do it now in a way that isn't going to be off-putting and angering people.
Right. Yeah. Or springs going off in the background. I don't know what that was, but anyhow, so let's talk a little bit about next steps. So we would agree that we think it's more than just giving your heart to God. There needs to be some intentionality. Is that the right word? You need to be intentional.
You can say it.
Yeah, it's easy for you to say. Yeah, it's just my broadcasting experience kicking in there. So you want to be intentional. And you want to give people opportunities, especially now that people are looking online more than ever, and they may be watching your streams online. How can we do that? So I guess the next thing I would ask is when we talk about next steps, what are some possible next steps that you might think of when we say, hey, you should take the next step? Well, what's the next step? What would you say? What are a few? We've got a few listed here in my notes, but
yeah. Well, obviously you already hit on one, and that's the one that everybody immediately comes to mind. Somebody says, I'm choosing to follow Jesus. Right. However, whatever your language is for that, whatever your process for that is the first next step.
Yeah.
maybe not. Coming to church would be the first next step.
Yeah, maybe not. Or if you're at church. So I guess what we're trying to say here today is next steps might look different for everybody for different churches too. And
absolutely, very much so.
I was just thinking about that, committing your life to God, to Jesus be a next step, but maybe before you get there, it's something else. It might be like you just said, maybe attending a church service or maybe attending a class. I don't know, a class that churches offer. Some churches offer classes, some churches offer Bible studies, some offer different seminars. That might be the next step for somebody.
Absolutely. And so we can't assume people are going to do those things in the realm we live in. You have to say, hey, Phil, I've delivered a sermon today. It was on love. Now I want you to show your love this week by taking this next step this week. I want you to, say hi to your neighbor or whatever that is. I want you to have a definitive actionable next step this week.
Yeah.
And that is, fill in the blank with whatever that is on the topic you're working on. So
Yeah, that's good.
commitment to Jesus,
But
connection card.
yeah, but let me, you hit a really good point there. Before we get into filling out a connection card, which is, another next step. But I think even if you're delivering a message, you're doing a sermon, you're doing a talk, whatever you want to call it, you're preaching, you should, not probably, you ought to have next steps in your message. Like you just said,
Yeah.
you talked about loving people. Now, how are you going to love people?
You motivated people, you got them pumped up and excited. Now take a next step.
Right.
And you got to call for it, or people will go, well, that was good. That was a good sermon.
Yeah.
Let's go lunch.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go to chicken fillet or whatever it's called.
Oh, no, you can't go to Chick-fil-A on Sunday.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, no.
Maybe Chick-fil-A should hire some atheists.
There's songs about that.
Maybe they should hire some atheists, and then they could have chicken on Sundays. All right.
Yeah.
I'll get in trouble for that.
Well,
all right.
I think the first one of making a commitment to Christ follows up perfectly in filling out a connection card. If you've made a commitment today, I want you to let us know so we can help you in the next steps of your journey. Yeah. Filling out some kind of digital or physical form helps us help you in whatever your greatest need is in your life.
Yeah, and let's, as we talk about some of these examples of next steps, there are some people listening here and going, well, you guys do streaming video. How's this going to work with streaming video? I mean, but it can work very well. I mean, you can certainly, everything we talk about here, I think without exception here, there's an opportunity to do this online, or at least digitally, at least filling out a connection card and making some kind of commitment. If you have a platform, a streaming platform that has video and chat, there's some opportunities there to implement next steps, even if somebody's not walking in the door.
Yeah, and I think in the world we live in today, Phil, that has actually merged with the live experience. Yeah. Many churches now have learned from church online how easy it is to fill out a next step card or a connection card or whatever you call your information connectivity tool. Fill it out on your phone, whether you're sitting in the seat or you're at home, with your slippers on, watching church online. So now these tools are so much more fluid, and everybody in every seat who are engaged in this great sermon today can experience the same next step tools to help you live out what Pastor asked you to do this week. Yeah.
That's good. That's good stuff. All right. So examples, obviously making a commitment to Christ, filling out a connection card. And again, this is not just limited to if you made a commitment to Christ. It could be anything that, there's some other things. Commit to daily devotional, that could be a next step for somebody. Regular Bible reading. And again, you can do this digitally online. There's YouVersion has stuff out there. There's other things that people can use. You can implement that on your streaming platform. That's a good one. Getting involved in a small group. So the pandemic is starting to ease here in the United States. And I think there are people that are coming back and getting involved in small groups. There are some stats out there that say people are not coming back as quickly, but you can do small groups online. I mean, I remember back when I was working with you at Alive back in the 2008 or whatever, 2009, we did small groups online.
Sure did. And
they were funny, and it was kind of interesting to do them because people's dogs would be barking, or somebody would be having dinner and you'd hear silverware. Or it was kind of a challenge if somebody's mic didn't work or video didn't work. But you can do, it's easier now. You can do small groups online. That's certainly a good next step. Yeah. Getting baptized online, that is probably not something, I don't know.
That's going to be pretty hard.
That would be hard to do. Yeah.
You know what I did though, Phil? When I was a church online guy, I had people reaching out. So our pastor makes a hard challenge every week. And if he's talking about baptism, he says, I want you to get baptized if you haven't been baptized, no matter where you live, no matter where you're watching me from, let us know. And then I found local churches.
That's good.
And I would reach out to them and say, I would try to find like-minded churches that had similar theology, et cetera, and say, hey, person's been attending online, they'd like to be baptized.
So this is people outside of Tucson, right? This is somebody's listening
this
in
is
Ohio
somebody in Montana or whatever.
Yeah.
And I always told, our team was always really big about, I don't care if I hope they walk in the door there and get baptized and attend that church. Our goal is not to, just numbers. It's next steps first, getting people to take their next steps. So what does that mean? Whatever that means, we're going to try to make that happen.
Yeah. And I don't think there's any law that says you can't baptize yourself. I mean, I know that people have done that, and they're somewhere, they're not by a church or something, and they baptize themselves either in the pool or a lake or whatever. I mean, you could do that. It's always nice to have people around to witness it and stuff, but
sure,
you could do that. So I don't think, I'm sure there's somebody out there that says that's not biblical, and maybe they're right.
You could set up a camera and record it, and everybody is going to have a different theology of baptism. And some of what we're saying bumps up against somebody else's belief. We're not trying to convince you how to believe or how to do baptism. We're just saying, be creative in thinking about how it could be done. Because in reality, I have baptized neighbors in a hot tub.
Yeah, there you go.
Because it's what we had. It was available. And we gathered a family around, and there you go.
Yeah, sometimes you can't get to the Jordan River or whatever. So, all right. So again, we're kind of talking about this specific one in the context of streaming online. But so you have those are next steps. Signing up for an event.
Absolutely.
That could be at the very beginning of the list, depending on somebody's relationship with God or whatever, or down the road a ways. Volunteering for service is always a good one. It helps people grow and helps your church, but it also helps them grow. There's nothing like getting involved and getting a reality check, but it will help you grow.
It makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Once you put your hand to the wheel and become part of the process, things change in your commitment level.
Yeah.
And it's all about growth and taking a next step. Volunteering and serving is a huge one. And if you can get people to do that, the chances of them staying connected to your organization is exponentially improved. But this kind of goes back to that, back in the day, we went door to door. There's a new dynamic in volunteering as well. And that is, if you don't personally ask someone to take the next step, they're not going to in most cases. Some will, a few will. A lot of people are waiting to be asked. And we just say, hey, I want you to take your next step today. And that's joining a team. Teach kids. Do something, that really gets you out of your comfort zone and get you growing, and do something new in your growth after you've made the first step.
I think that's okay. Your dog I think he wants to take the next step. Volunteering is a good thing. And again, the old scripture, you have not because you ask not. So I think it's always good to ask people to be involved in the church, and you can do that online. You can certainly do that. You can support the church financially. That's for some people a big first step or next step. But asking people to support that, when people start giving, when they're ready to start giving, they're buying in to your vision and your mission. And so it not only helps them, but it helps your church, and they get a better understanding of what it means to make a commitment. And again, you can have a church you can donate button online. That's easy to do if you have a platform. Share a prayer request for some people, when they're watching online, just sharing a prayer request is a big step for them, especially if they're new.
Oh yeah.
And again, you should have some kind of a prayer request link or button on your platform. Certainly should have that on your connection card, even if it's a physical church. You can. One of the things I used to do, I had when I came in years ago to this church that was kind of small and was growing, and they weren't used to a lot of things, and I had them start doing a connection card. And one of the ways I've got people to actually fill out the connection card was to, hey, you have a prayer request? Put it on your connection card. We'll be confidential with it. Only leadership team sees it. And people started to do that, and they weren't used to it, but they started to do it. So it was a step that they took, and it helped us as a church, as in those administration of the church, because not only would we pray for them, we would get to know them, and we could follow up with them. And again, if you get what we're saying here, this is all about connecting with people. Next steps is helping them grow, but also you connect with them and hopefully add to their life through the next steps. That's really what we're talking about.
I think one thing I would say with this is, as we obviously, because we're streaming church.tv, we live more so in the online world. Make sure that somehow on your platform, when you're streaming, that you make it super easy for people to take the next step. With digital technology being what it is, you can make a button that says, prayer request here, click here for prayer request, click here for, fill in the blank, whatever it is. And I don't want to go too deep down the rabbit hole, but with streamingchurch.tv, you actually have the ability on our platform of having 20 different buttons that you can change live during the service. So that when pastor says, if take this poll, or, whatever that may be in the process of the engagement of the service and asking for those next steps, that you easily provide an avenue that somebody can go click and then follow through with whatever that next step is.
Make it, remove all the obstacles and make it as easy as possible to take that next step. So these are just a few examples. We've got other things in here, membership classes, or if your church happens to have something like that, or spiritual growth classes, or how to share your faith, those things. The bottom line, what we're talking about here is everybody, if you're involved in your church, even as a volunteer, all the way up to a senior pastor, you should have a desire for people to be active participants, not passive spectators. And we're in this age, and we've talked about it a lot, and lots of people are talking about how church is full of spectators. Well, this is one way to, this is the antidote, so to speak, to passive spectators. It's actually helping them become active participants. And so next steps really is the way you measure how you're doing as a church. Back in the old days, we would measure how many people showed up. Oh, we had 3 more people this weekend. Yay, we're doing really good. Or if the offering went up, we were happy about that. And of course, when somebody made a commitment to Christ, that was a great thing. But it's more than just those things. It's more than just counting the people in the seats. That doesn't necessarily lead to spiritual growth. What leads to growth is how many people are really participating in your church. And so and I know you guys did this too, but what I would do is, how many people are in small groups this week? How many people attended the membership class? How many people attended the spiritual growth class? How many people were involved in something? That's to be a better indicator on how you're doing as a church, and just, we had so many people show up this week, good for us.
So we had it as a goal, Phil. I don't know if you remember this, but one of if I was the teaching pastor for the weekend and I was delivering the sermon, it was incumbent on me to try to compel people to take the next steps. And the quality of my review on how well I did by the team was, how many people did you get to
You're breaking up a little bit. How many people
take
did
the
you
next
get?
step.
Yeah, to take the next step.
Now, how good or eloquent or whatever it was,
Yeah.
measure next steps.
Yeah.
So that was a big deal. The other thing I would say is, since we live in a digital world, if we want people to be engaged, we have to take the first step and engage them. And that is providing an avenue to get them to take a simple action, a baby step, if you will, to click a button, do something, to take a next step and begin the process of moving forward and really understanding and having this great relationship with God.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. All right. So we're out of time. We're just about out of time here. I know.
Bad.
Too bad. So
good talk.
Yeah, I think so. So, we'd love to get your feedback on this, folks. Do you think next steps is important? What are maybe some of the next steps you're doing? We'd love to hear from you about that. And you can just send us an email, support@streamingchurch.tv. We're all involved in ministry. That's what makes this company, I think, pretty unique. We've been serving churches for over 20 years as a company, and we want to help your church any way we can. And so I'll get back to the webinar, which is coming up. Great way to help you.
Great next step, though.
It would be. Absolutely.
That'd be a great next step for people is to go to that address.
Yeah. Webinar.streamingchurch.tv. And it's 4 easy steps to leverage your live stream for ministry growth online. We'll talk specifically about online things you can be doing that will help your church grow. Next step is one of those things, and you can sign up at webinar.streamingchurch.tv. It's free. It's March 15th. Mark your calendar. It's 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 on the West Coast. And we'd be happy to have you guys come. It's free. And as I said earlier, it's not going to be long. Right? It's going to be about 30 minutes, and we'll do some questions and answers as well. So do that if you would. And don't forget, check out mychurchdaily.com. This is a new product that we've put out that will help your ministry, your church get on Alexa devices, those Alexa devices that over millions of people, I think over 30 million people have them, maybe more than that now. And they're Amazon Echo devices. They all come in shapes and sizes. You can ask it the weather. You can do a flash briefing. Well, we have a company our product, I should say, from our company is mychurchdaily.com. And you could get on those devices and do a flash briefing every day if you wanted to. We've made it very simple, very easy to do. So check it out, mychurchdaily.com. So lots of things you can do here, folks, for next steps. All right, Michael, we're done. Sure appreciate you very much.
Always a pleasure, Phil.
All right. And for Steve Lacy, I'm Phil Thompson. And most of all, thank you for listening to our Church Solutions podcast. You can subscribe to it anywhere that you get your podcast. And in the meantime, please take care of yourselves and take care of each other. We'll see you again next time on another episode of the Church Solutions podcast.